He says the lifting of economic sanctions by the United States, Britain and the European Union will allow his country to start rebuilding. He made the remarks after an anti-sanctions march in Harare, which was attended by more than 3,000 people. The African Union, including South Africa, supports the call to lift sanctions. Mnangagwa says the sanctions are the primary reason why restoring stability to the economy has been so difficult. He noted that the European Union has begun softening its stance towards Zimbabwe. He says he hopes America can afford Zimbabwe the same chance. Mnangagwa, like late former President Robert Mugabe, blames the sanctions imposed by the US and EU since 2001 for the economic ills and says they are intended to remove his party from power.
We call on the United States government to immediately and unconditionally remove the sanctions they have imposed on our country for the sake of our children, living and unborn, our youth, our women, the elderly, and our economy as a whole. We, the people of Zimbabwe, deserve to grow, deserve to develop, we deserve to modernize, we deserve to industrialize and prosper without albatross of sanctions imposed by the United States of America.
And staying with Zimbabwe in Harare, many stayed away from the demonstrations, saying they were a distraction from the president's mishandling of the economy. Zimbabwe is plagued by 18-hour daily power cuts and shortages of foreign exchange, fuel and medicines. My colleague Peter Ndoro spoke to our correspondent in Zimbabwe, Efet Musekiwa, about the march in Harare.
The government went all out, issuing out statements, making publicity stunts. You know, they did everything they could to make sure that people attended this day. They even went to the extent of declaring the day a national holiday so that people would get time to come and attend this event. But as the day progressed, remember it was the proceedings were supposed to start at 6 a.m. But by that time there were very few people gathered at the gathering area. And when the march began, there were just a few thousands. We expected more than that. We expected 10 times more than that. But there were a few thousands that marched alongside the First Lady who led the marchers. They marched from Robert Mugabe Square to the National Stadium, where later on the President Emmerson Mnangagwa addressed the nation. But surprisingly, for the second time, the stadium was not filled to capacity. It was half empty. There were not that many people as a lot of people had anticipated that the day would turn up.
All right, so have you been able to ascertain why people perhaps didn't show up in the numbers that were anticipated?
Well, we do understand that the government did deploy buses to every province of Zimbabwe, a minimum of 10 buses per province. The total, I remember last night was announced that they had mobilized more than 230 buses to ferry people that wanted to come and attend the march. But I think also maybe to the fact that they also had other parallel events going on in the provinces. They also had the same events at provincial level where people would march and then gather and get an address. So I think maybe most people from the other provinces did stay away, but Harare did not turn up. There were very few people that were in the stadium. Maybe we'll get an understanding or we'll get a clarification from the ministry as to why the numbers were so low today.
Efet, do you know if the average Zimbabwean actually understands what these sanctions are and how they're affecting them personally?
Well, Peter, yesterday we did speak to people on the streets, just trying to find out if they would attend, this gathering or not. And most people that we spoke to were saying that the sanctions are targeted. People do understand what these sanctions are, but they also say that these sanctions are targeted, and that the mere fact that most of these people that we spoke to were from Harare, and these are opposition supporters, and you would kind of get a sense that they would incline in that direction where they would say it's a ZANU-PF they are targeted towards or against ZANU-PF. They have nothing to do with us. So really, people do understand the sanctions, but I think they just didn't want to partake in the marches today. They didn't want to be in solidarity with ZANU-PF. But surprisingly, at the airport, Peter, we had some opposition leaders from the smaller political parties. We had the likes of Love Maduku, who runs the National Constitutional Assembly. He was there, and when we spoke to him while he was there, he said this day was not about politics. It was not about politicians. It wasn't necessarily just about Zimbabwe, but it was about unity with the SADC region. This call was made by SADC, and that as politicians or as Zimbabweans, we had to stand alongside with SADC to show our unity and to show our appreciation for the support. He says that every time Zimbabweans have had challenges, the first place, including the main opposition, the MDC, whenever they have challenges with the current government, the first place they run to is SADC. So they say that they were marching just in solidarity with SADC than with the ZANU-PF as a party.